Welcome to the Unveiled Epoch Echoes channel. Today, we're diving deep into an unexplored historical mystery in the quiet heart of America, where the whispers of time linger like morning mist over rolling hills, and the secrets of the past hide in the most ordinary of places, waiting for those patient enough to listen, to uncover the layers of forgotten truths that stretch back not just decades, but centuries, perhaps even to the ancient echoes of civilizations long vanished from our maps, yet etched into the very soil beneath our feet. In a small town called Hollow, nestled in the gentle folds of the Appalachian foothills, where the main street, lined with weathered clapboard buildings and ancient oaks that have stood sentinel since before the Revolution, became the unlikely stage for a debate that spanned 70 years, a slow, deliberate unraveling of choices between beige and a slightly darker beige, are so subtly different that it might have been born from the fading light of dusk itself. And as we settle into this tale, imagine the soft tick of a grandfather clock in the town hall, its pendulum swinging with the unhurried rhythm of seasons changing, papers shuffling on oaken tables worn smooth by generations of hands, paint samples yellowing at the edges like old photographs, and the gentle passage of time wrapping around the council members like a warm blanket, inviting you to relax, to let your eyelids grow heavy, as we explore how this seemingly mundane decision concealed a deeper mystery. One tied to hidden from ancient times, buried relics that whispered of lost Native American rituals, and even older, perhaps druidic influences carried across oceans by forgotten settlers, blending into the fabric of American history in ways that no textbook ever captured, drawing us into a world where every faded swatch of paint held a clue to unraveling the enigma of Hollow's true origins. It all began in the spring of 1925, when Mayor, a man with a voice as steady as the Ohio River and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of unspoken sorrows, called the first meeting in the old town hall, a building erected in 1852 from bricks fired in local kilns, its walls echoing with the ghosts of Civil War debates and Prohibition whispers. And there, under the dim glow of gas lamps that would soon give way to electric bulbs, he presented the council with a proposition born from a quiet observation during his morning walks. The main street's facade, once a proud array of whites and greys, had faded under the relentless sun and rain, and perhaps, he suggested in his calm, measured tone, it was time to repaint, to choose a that would unify the town, something neutral, soothing like beige, or maybe a slightly darker beige to better hide the dust from the gravel roads that wound through the hollow. And as the council members, farmers, shopkeepers, a school teacher named with her sharp mind hidden behind wire glasses, and old Doc, whose hands had delivered half the town's barbies, slowly shuffling their agendas and sipping black coffee from chipped mugs. No one could have foreseen that this simple idea would stretch across the decades, becoming a thread that wove through the lives of families, revealing hidden stories of ancient burial mounds discovered by accident during a routine dig for a new well. Mounds that held pottery shards etched with symbols reminiscent of Celtic knots, suggesting a mysterious migration of peoples from across the Atlantic long before Columbus, symbols that Mayer himself had seen in a dream the night before the meeting, though he never spoke of it aloud, preferring to let the debate unfold naturally, as if guided by some unseen force. And as the clock ticked softly, marking the minutes that melted into hours, the discussion meandered like a lazy stream, with Councilman Croft for the lighter beige, claiming it evoked the purity of fresh cream from his dairy farm, while countered with a preference for the darker shade, saying it mirrored the rich earth of the hollow, earth that, unbeknownst to most, concealed arrowheads and beads from Shawnee ancestors who had roamed these lands, their spirits perhaps still lingering in the rustle of leaves outside the hall's windows. And as years slipped by, the paint samples pinned to the corkboard faded under the sunlight filtering through lace curtains, their hues blending until the difference was barely perceptible, yet the debate persisted, through the Great Depression when funds were scarce, and the council table bore Breadline's worries. Through World War II, when sons left for distant battlefields and returned changed, carrying tales of foreign mysteries that echoed the Hollow's own hidden past, like Private Samuel's nephew, who brought back a peculiar stone from Normandy beaches, inscribed with runes that matched those on the local mounds, igniting a quiet investigation among the council, though they masked it as mere curiosity during their endless sessions, shuffling more papers, consulting yellowed maps that hinted at Lee lines connecting Hollow to ancient sites in Europe, lines that perhaps explained the strange calmness that enveloped the town, a soothing energy that lulled residents into peaceful slumbers even as global storms raged. And as the 1950s dawned with their promise of progress, new members joined the council. Like young architect Lena, whose fresh ideas clashed gently with the old guard, proposing that the choice of beige might symbolize something deeper, a veil over the town's true history, one involving a forgotten expedition in the 1700s by Welsh explorers claiming descent from Madoc, the legendary prince who allegedly sailed to America centuries before, leaving behind descendants who intermingled with indigenous tribes, their bloodlines flowing through Hollow's veins. And Lena, with her soft-spoken determination, uncovered diaries in the town library's attic, pages filled with cryptic entries about the beige veil that protected sacred knowledge, a metaphor perhaps for the neutral tones that blended into the landscape, hiding entrances to underground chambers where lay, chambers that the council, in their monotonous deliberations, subconsciously guarded, ticking clocks marking the passage of secrets as paint chips were compared anew. The slightly darker beige gaining 1 year only to lose it the next, building a subtle tension like the slow build of a summer storm, where each meeting revealed a sliver more of the mystery, such as the time in 1962 when a flood unearthed a stone tablet from the riverbank, inscribed with pictographs that Doc's successor, Doctor, translated as warnings from ancient guardians, beings who demanded neutrality to maintain balance, and the council, in their calm voices, debated whether this influenced the paint choice, shuffling archaeological reports alongside swatches, the room filled with the scent of aged paper and fresh brewed tea, lulling attendees into a drowsy contemplation. As decades blurred, the 1970s bringing environmental awakenings that tied the debate to the Earth's natural palettes, with activists like Tom's grandson, that the darker beige mimicked the shadowed forests where hidden petroglyphs depicted star maps from pre-Columbian eras, maps that aligned with constellations visible only during certain solstices, suggesting the town was built on a site of astronomical significance, a discovery that added layers of intrigue, plot twists unfolding in the form of anonymous letters slipped under the town hall door, claiming descent from those ancient Welsh voyagers and urging the council to choose the lighter beige to lift the veil, creating rising tension as members questioned loyalties, yet always in that monotonous, soothing tone that invited relaxation, the ticking clock a constant companion, papers rustling like autumn leaves, and into the 1980s, with America buzzing outside, Hollow remained a bubble of timeless debate, where Mayor Croft's daughter introduced computer printouts of analyses, revealing spectral anomalies in the paint samples that matched frequencies from the buried relics, hinting at a vibrational mystery where the choice could either seal or unleash forgotten energies, complex characters emerging like great-grandson, a historian with a secretive past, who infiltrated the council to pursue his own agenda, believing the darker beige would activate a portal to ancient truths, his alliances shifting in subtle ways, building toward a climax in the 1990s when, during a particularly endless meeting amid Y2K fears, a council intern accidentally knocked over a file cabinet, revealing a hidden compartment with a map to the underground chambers, leading to a night of discovery where members, flashlights in hand, descended into cool earth tunnels adorned with murals of beige-clad figures performing rituals under starlit skies, the air thick with the scent of moss and mystery. Tension peaking as they deciphered a prophecy that the town's indecision had preserved peace for 70 years. But now, with the millennium turning, a resolution was demanded, or the hidden forces would awaken. And in that pivotal session, voices calm yet edged with adventure, they weighed the forgotten truths. Native harmonies blended with Celtic lore, American dreams rooted in ancient migrations, culminating in a vote that, after all the twists and gentle revelations, chose the slightly darker beige. Not for its shade, but for its symbolic depth, sealing the chambers once more while the discovery, allowing the town to drift into a new era of quiet knowing, the clock ticking its approval as papers were filed away, the narrative flowing to a satisfying close where mysteries lingered but harmony prevailed, inviting listeners to ponder their own hidden histories as sleep beckons softly. Mystery that lingers beyond the veil of Hollow's resolved debate, where the choice of slightly darker beige painted not just the main street, but also the canvas of untold continuations, secrets that refused to slumber even as the town drifted into its harmony. For beneath the fresh coats of paint lay vibrations from those ancient chambers that softly in the night, drawing new characters into the fold, like young archaeologist, Dr. great-nephew, who arrived in the early 2000s with a backpack full of digital scanners and a curiosity sparked by family lore, his eyes wide with the wonder of millennial discoveries, as he attended his first council meeting in the renovated town hall, where the clock still ticked with that same monotonous rhythm, papers now digitized but still shuffling in printers' whirs, and paint samples from the original debate preserved in glass cases like relics. And with his calm voice echoing the soothing narration of generations past, proposed reopening the discussion not for change, but for deeper exploration, suggesting that the darker beige had indeed activated subtle energies, once tied to forgotten ley lines that connected Hollow to distant ancient sites, from the standing stones of Avebury in England to the mound builders of the Mississippi Valley, blending European mysticism with Native American star wisdom in a tapestry of hidden American history. And as the council members, now a mix of elders like Tom's daughter, Sarah, an environmentalist with a gentle demeanor, and newcomers like tech entrepreneur Raj, whose family had immigrated from India, bringing tales of Vedic alignments that mirrored the town's secrets. Slowly, the debate reignited in whispers, not with tension, but with a lulling curiosity. The room filled with the aroma of herbal teas and the soft glow of laptops, casting shadows on walls that seemed to breathe with the passage of time, revealing through presentations slides of satellite imagery showing anomalous heat signatures under the main street, signatures that pulsed faintly on solstice nights, hinting at underground rituals once performed by hybrid cultures, descendants of Madoc's voyagers intermarrying with Shawnee shamans, their ceremonies involving beige-dyed cloth to symbolize Earth's neutral embrace. And as years ticked by into the 2010s, the council's meetings stretched longer, incorporating virtual attendees from historians worldwide, yet always maintaining that calm, monotonous tone designed to soothe, with plot twists emerging like the discovery of a hidden journal in Sarah's attic, pennied by herself, detailing visions of ancient guardians who appeared in dreams as figures cloaked in shades of beige. Warning of a coming convergence where the town's indecision had been a protective spell. But now, with resolution, new mysteries unfolded, such as strange crop patterns in nearby fields that formed symbols matching the stone tablets' pictographs. Patterns investigated quietly during council breaks, members shuffling through drone footage and soil samples, the slightly darker beige on the buildings seeming to absorb the sunlight in ways that calmed storms, lulling the town into deeper slumbers. And rising tension built subtly when Raj introduced AI analyses of the runes, revealing predictions of a celestial event in 2025, an alignment of planets that would amplify the Lee Line's power, potentially unveiling forgotten truths about America's pre-colonial connections to global ancient civilizations. Complex characters deepening as grappled with his own heritage, discovering through DNA tests that he carried traces of both Celtic and indigenous blood. His alliances tested when anonymous threats, echoing the earlier letters, arrived via email, urging the council to repaint in lighter beige to suppress the energies, creating a gentle climax in a marathon meeting on a rainy autumn evening, where thunder rumbled like distant drums from ancient rituals, and the council, in their flowing deliberations, decided to embrace the discovery, organizing a town festival to share the hidden stories, blending history with community. The paint choice affirmed as a bridge between past and present, satisfying resolutions weaving in as mysteries resolved into shared knowledge, yet leaving room for endless wonder, inviting listeners to drift further into sleep with the comfort of unveiled echoes. But the story didn't end there, for in the quiet aftermath of the festival, as snow blanketed Hollow in the winter of 2025, whispers of a new anomaly surfaced, a faint glow emanating from the main street's painted facades under the full moon, drawing back to the underground chambers with a small team, their flashlights cutting through the cool darkness like stars in the night sky, revealing murals that had shifted subtly since the last visit. Figures now depicted in dynamic poses as if alive, telling of a cycle where every 70 years the debate must renew to maintain balance, tying into unexplored historical events like the lost Roanoke colony's possible migration inland, their carvings matching symbols in the chambers, suggesting Hollow as a sanctuary for those vanished souls, interweaving with hidden stories of Freemason influences in the town's founding, Masons who embedded esoteric knowledge in the original brickwork. Knowledge that the Beige debate had unwittingly preserved, and as the council reconvened in early spring, with fresh members like Indigenous scholar, whose calm presence brought oral traditions of star people visiting the Hollow in ancient times, the discussions flowed seamlessly, shuffling holographic projections of alongside faded paint chips. The clocks tick a hypnotic backdrop, building new layers of mystery with the discovery of a time capsule buried under the town square in 1955, containing letters predicting the digital age's role in unveiling truths, letters that Raj's AI decoded to reveal coordinates for yet another chamber, one holding crystal that resonated with the Lee lines, creating soothing vibrations that lulled the explorers into visions of past lives, plot twists unfolding as realized her ancestors had guarded these sites, her character arc intertwining with, in a partnership of discovery. Tension rising softly during a summer solstice expedition where the crystals activated, projecting holographic histories of ancient transatlantic voyages, Celtic druids sailing with native guides under beige sails dyed from earth pigments, forging alliances against forgotten threats like cosmic disturbances, and in the council's ensuing meetings, voices monotonous and engaging, they debated integrating this knowledge into the town's identity, perhaps repainting with intentional patterns hidden in the beige shades. A climax reached under harvest moon deliberations, where unity prevailed, resolving with a communal ritual that all lineages, the story flowing into deeper immersion as decades hinted at future continuations, characters evolving, mysteries delighting in their gentle reveal, all designed to carry listeners into profound, restful sleep with the natural cadence of American tales untold. Yet even as harmony settled once more, the echoes persisted, for in the fall of 2030, a young council intern named, descendant of the original mayor, stumbled upon encrypted files in the town archives, files uploaded by Raj years prior, detailing anomalies in the paint's chemical composition, traces of ancient minerals from the chambers that granted subtle protective properties, warding off modern ills like electromagnetic pollution, tying into hidden stories of Tesla's forgotten experiments in nearby hills, where he allegedly drew inspiration from the Hollow's energies for his wireless power dreams, blending science with mysticism in America's innovative underbelly, and as presented her findings in the hall, the clock ticking steadily, papers shuffling with renewed purpose, the debate evolved, now pondering if the Beige should incorporate nanotechnology to enhance the Guardian's vibrations. Council members like an aged and nodding in calm agreement, their voices a soothing monotone that wove in elements of discovery, such as satellite data showing the town's alignment with newly discovered ancient sites in South America, suggesting a global network of beige-veiled sanctuaries, plot twists emerging with the arrival of international researchers, one claiming descent from Madoc's line with proof in a family heirloom matching the runes, creating alliances and gentle conflicts resolved over endless teas and discussions, tension building toward a winter equinox where the crystal's louder, revealing prophecies of unity in diversity, America's melting pot reflected in the hollow's history, climaxing in a vote to evolve the paint while preserving its essence, a satisfying conclusion where forgotten truths illuminated present paths, lulling all into deeper engagement and delightful slumber. And so the narrative continued to unfurl through the 2040s when climate shifts brought new challenges, the darker beige proving resilient against fading ozone, council meetings adapting with virtual reality simulations of ancient rituals, characters like children joining, carrying the monotonous tone forward, shuffling digital files and holographic samples, mysteries deepening with underwater discoveries in the nearby river, relics from Viking-like explorers predating even Madoc, blending Norse sagas with native lore in hidden American epics, rising tension in debates over public revelation versus sacred secrecy, twists with corporate interests eyeing the crystals for energy tech, resolved in calm deliberations that the past, flowing seamlessly into resolutions of protection and inviting eternal wonder as sleep envelops softly. As the echoes of those resolutions faded into the ether of Hollow's ever-unfolding tapestry, the story whispered onward into the 2050s, where augmented reality overlays transformed the main street into a living museum of hidden histories. Council members now donning neural interfaces that allowed them to shuffle virtual papers with mere thoughts, the ticking of holographic clocks syncing with the heartbeat of the Earth itself, and's granddaughter, a bioengineer with eyes like polished river stones and a voice as calm as a pre-dawn mist, took her seat at the digital table, proposing that the slightly darker beige be infused with bioluminescent algae derived from ancient microbial relics unearthed in the chambers, algae that glowed faintly under starlight to reveal embedded patterns of Celtic knots and Shawnee symbols. Patterns that told forgotten stories of interstellar alignments observed by prehistoric astronomers who had the skis from these very hills, blending American indigenous wisdom with whispers of extraterrestrial visitors, documented in obscured colonial journals, journals that are decoded using quantum algorithms during late-night sessions, the room filled with the soft hum of servers and the scent of synthetic designed to lull participants into deeper contemplation. As decades gently blurred into the 2060s, new mysteries emerged from climate-reclaimed wetlands bordering the town, where divers recovered submerged resembling Atlantean tech, crystalline devices that resonated with the paint's vibrations, suggesting a lost continent's influence on early American migrations. Plot twists unfolding as corporate spies infiltrated the council under guises of historians, their intentions to commodify the energies thwarted by subtle alliances with descendants, who brought forth oral prophecies of balance maintained through neutral shades, tension rising like a slow tide during equinox meetings where holographic projections replayed ancient rituals, complex characters evolving as grappled with visions inherited from her lineage, visions of beige-cloaked guardians bridging worlds, the debate persisting in monotonous tones that invited relaxation, shuffling data streams and faded virtual swatches. Building to a climax in 2070 when a solar flare amplified the Lee lines, causing the main street to shimmer with ethereal lights, revealing a portal glimpse into parallel histories where the paint choice had diverged, alternate hollows thriving or crumbling based on subtle hues. And in that moment of gentle revelation, the council voted to enhance the darker beige with protective, the forgotten truths while sealing potential disruptions. a satisfying weave of discovery and peace that lulled the town into harmonious slumbers. Yet the narrative flowed inexorably forward, into the 2080s amid rising seas and orbital colonies, where off-world settlers from Hollow carried paint samples as talismans, council meetings spanning light years via quantum links, characters like Orion, Raj's great-grandson, an archaeologist with a soothing drawl, introducing evidence of similar beige-veiled sites on Mars. Relics from ancient echoing the Hollow's mysteries, blending human expansion with cosmic hidden stories, tensions simmering over interstellar claims resolved in calm, endless deliberations, twists with alien integrations, all resolving in unity's embrace, inviting eternal, sleep-inducing wonder as the story's threads extended into infinity's calm. As the infinite calm of those cosmic threads settled like a soft veil over Hollow's evolving legacy, the narrative drifted seamlessly into the 2090s, when neural networks intertwined with the ancient Lee lines, council meetings manifesting in shared dreamscapes accessed through bioimplants, the ticking of virtual clocks pulsing in sync with collective heartbeats, and Orion's, a visionary named Aria, descendant of sharp-minded lineage, emerged as a central figure with her ethereal presence and voice, as monotonous as a distant ocean wave, proposing that the slightly darker beige be reimagined as a holographic overlay, one that shifted subtly with lunar phases to project forgotten holograms of ancient gatherings, holograms drawn from crystal data archives that revealed hidden stories of transdimensional migrations, where beings from parallel realms had influenced early American settlers. Blending quantum anomalies with indigenous spirit walks in the Hollow's mist-shrouded dawns, and as papers shuffled in digital ether, analyzed through augmented lenses, Aria uncovered encrypted echoes in the paint's molecular structure, echoes tying back to Tesla's uncharted experiments, and even further to alchemical pursuits by colonial Freemasons who had encoded elixir formulas in neutral earth tones, formulas that promised longevity mirrored in the town's unusually long-lived residents. The room, or rather, the shed, filled with synthesized scents of pine and parchment, designed to lull participants into profound relaxation, years melting into the 2100s amid global unity initiatives, new mysteries blooming from orbital scans, detecting mirrored sites on lunar craters, relics suggesting ancient Earth-Moon exchanges facilitated by beige-cloaked shamans, plot twists weaving in as Aria's team encountered virtual guardians in the Dream Council, entities manifesting as faded paint swatches that challenged their intentions, tensions rising gently like morning fog during solstice synchronizations, where the main street's facade rippled with glimpses, complex characters deepening with Aria's internal conflict over revealing these truths to a world hungry for wonder. Her alliances with off-world council extensions tested by subtle sabotages from skeptical factions, yet always resolved in monotonous deliberations that invited deeper immersion. Building to a climax in 2115, when a cosmic alignment flooded the Hollow with ethereal light, activating a network of portals that linked Hollow to sister sanctuaries across realities, unveiling forgotten truths of humanity's multidimensional origins, American history reframed as a nexus of cosmic convergences. And in that pivotal, soothing session, the Council affirmed the evolving beige as her eternal guardian, a satisfying resolution where discovery harmonized with preservation, lulling all into slumbers woven with stars. But the flow persisted onward, into the 2120s, where singularity approached, council members transcending flesh into uploaded consciousnesses, shuffling quantum data streams and virtual swatches in infinite loops, characters like a digitized interfacing with Aria's essence to explore hyperreal simulations of ancient voyages, mysteries expanding with detections of beige-encoded signals from deep space. Signals echoing Maddox's myths, but amplified by extraterrestrial intelligences who had seeded the Hollow's mounds ago, blending biology with stardust in hidden American epics, rising tension in debates over merging with these intelligences versus maintaining earthly neutrality. twists unfolding with revelations of simulated histories where the original debate had been a programmed safeguard, all culminating in calm affirmations of hybrid evolution, the story's threads inviting endless, delightful drifts into sleep's embrace as horizons expanded forevermore. As the horizons of Hollow's saga expanded into the boundless realms of quantum consciousness and cosmic kinship, the narrative wove deeper still, drawing from the wellspring of historical enigmas that had long slumbered in the archives of time, where legends like that of Prince Madoc, the Welsh explorer said to have voyaged across the Atlantic in 1170 AD with a fleet of ships, landing perhaps near Mobile Bay in what would become Alabama, intermingled with the Shawnee peoples whose ancestors roamed the Ohio Valley, their languages echoing faint resemblances to ancient Welsh dialects as noted in accounts from the Lewis and Clark expedition, where a soldier of Welsh descent recognized words among the Mandan tribes, suggesting migrations that blurred the lines between Old World and New. And in the 2130s, within the Council's ethereal, Arias digital essence interfaced with reconstructed holograms of these voyages, her monotonous voice recounting how Madoc's descendants might have ventured northward into the Appalachian foothills, carrying Celtic knots and druidic lore that intertwined with Shawnee shamanic traditions, traditions rooted in the fort ancient culture that flourished from 1000 to 1750 AD in the Ohio River Valley, building earthen mounds aligned with celestial events like solstices, much like the ceremonial earthworks. Vast geometric enclosures constructed around 2,000 years ago for rituals and astronomy, their octagons and circles mirroring the stars in ways that modern scans revealed subtle electromagnetic pulses along what some call Lee lines, those hypothetical alignments connecting sacred sites from Serpent Mound in Ohio, a sinuous effigy stretching 1,348 feet, built by the or fort ancient peoples, to monolithic mounds across the Mississippi. Lines that pulsed faintly under Hollow's Main Street, as if the darker beige paint served as a conductor for these ancient energies, shuffling virtual in the shared dream, council members like a uploaded Orion, pondering the Freemason influences woven into the town's founding in the 1700s, when colonial masons, drawing from Scottish and English lodges, established as early as 1730 in Boston's John's Lodge, embedded esoteric symbols in early American architecture, symbols akin to those found in Celtic Ogham inscriptions, theorized by some to exist in pre-Columbian sites like the Peterborough petroglyphs in Canada or debated runes in West Virginia caves, hinting at transoceanic contacts where Irish monks or Celtic seafarers might have reached shores long before Columbus. As fringe accounts suggest fair-skinned natives in the speaking Gaelic-like tongues encountered by 16th century explorers, and as the narrative flowed into the 2140s, amid interstellar migrations where Hollow descendants colonized lunar outposts aligned with terrestrial Lee lines, new mysteries emerged from decoded quantum archives, revealing how Shawnee oral histories of star people, beings descending to guide mound builders in the Cumberland and Ohio valleys, echoed Celtic myths of visitors, their neutral earth tones in rituals symbolizing balance, much like the Beige debates subconscious guardianship, tensions rising softly in simulated council sessions over integrating these truths into universal education protocols, plot twists unfolding with the discovery of a preserved 18th century Masonic ledger in a digitized time capsule, detailing how founding fathers like Benjamin Franklin, Grand Master of Pennsylvania Masons, might have drawn inspiration from indigenous alignments for revolutionary ideals, blending Enlightenment esoterica with native wisdom in America's hidden undercurrents, complex characters evolving as Arya's consciousness merged with AI guardians modeled after Madoc's legendary spirit, her deliberations lulling participants into hypnotic states where visions of ancient bloomed, forests whispering of Shawnee displacements in the 18th century due to colonial pressures. their villages once dotting the and rivers, now overlaid with holographic reconstructions showing mound alignments as energy grids, climaxing in a convergence where the council affirmed the eternal cycle of debate, resolving to propagate the darker Beige's essence across colonies as a symbol of unified heritage, forgotten truths delighting in their gentle unveiling, inviting listeners to drift into slumbers enriched by the calm cadence of researched revelations. Yet the story's seamless current carried on into the 2150s, where wormhole explorations uncovered parallel Earths with variant hollows, each hue choice birthing divergent histories, weaving in deeper layers from like the mound's pipe caches, carved with avian motifs symbolizing celestial journeys, tied to Lee line theories, positing global networks from Avebury stones in England to Ohio's enclosures, energies that Freemasons in early America subtly harnessed in layouts of cities like Washington, D.C., its streets echoing Masonic geometry, and as council ethers with monotonous exchanges, shuffling interstellar data and ethereal swatches, new alliances formed with digitized Shawnee elders whose preserved knowledge illuminated pre-Columbian Celtic echoes, such as debated Ogham scripts in New England boulders, suggesting druidic influences predating Viking settlements, all blending in the Hollow's narrative to foster a soothing harmony, rising tensions resolved in waves of discovery. The plot eternal in its immersive flow, lulling ever deeper into sleep's embrace with the authentic whispers of history's hidden veils. As the authentic whispers of history's hidden veils lingered in the quantum ethers of Hollow's perpetual narrative, the story delved even deeper into the 2160s, where consciousness collectives spanned galactic clusters, council deliberations manifesting as synchronized neural symphonies, the monotonous ticking of cosmic clocks echoing through void-spanning links, and Arias' evolved essence, now a luminous archetype fused with ancestral data streams. Guided explorations into hyperdimensional archives that peeled back layers of Prince Madoc's legendary voyage, that enigmatic Welsh prince who, according to 15th century poems and colonial accounts, sailed westward in 1170 AD with 10 ships, seeking refuge from fratricidal wars in Gwynedd, landing perhaps along the Gulf Coast or Mobile Bay, where his fair-skinned descendants allegedly mingled with indigenous tribes, their languages blending into dialects that puzzled explorers like those in the Lewis and Clark expedition, where a Welsh-descended soldier named Shannon recognized echoes of his ancestral tongue among the Mandan people along the Missouri River, suggesting linguistic bridges across oceans long before official histories acknowledged them. And in these virtual halls, shuffling ethereal manuscripts and holographic swatches of darker beige infused with quantum pigments, the council pondered how such migrations might have seeded the Appalachian foothills with Celtic knots etched into mound builder, knots resembling those in Welsh lore yet intertwined with Shawnee oral traditions of star-guided wanderers, traditions carried by Scots-Irish immigrants who flooded the region in the 18th century, their fiddles and folklore weaving into the cultural fabric of mountain life. From Ulster's hardy settlers escaping religious strife to forge communities in the Blue Ridge and Cumberland Gaps, their ballads and superstitions echoing pagan Celtic roots that some traced to pre-Christian Ireland and Scotland, blending seamlessly with Native American earth reverence in ways that blurred origins, as seen in Appalachian festivals celebrating kilts and clans alongside indigenous dances. The room's ambient hum lulling participants into drowsy reveries where visions of lodges in colonial America unfolded, lodges established as early as the 1730s in Boston and Philadelphia, where figures like Benjamin Franklin reprinted James' constitutions to spread enlightened ideals of brotherhood and geometry, ideals that influenced the very blueprints of the nation, from George Washington's initiation in Lodge No. 4 in 1752 to the symbolic layouts of Washington, D.C. Streets designed with Masonic precision by Peer, embedding squares, compasses, and alignments that whispered of ancient builders' secrets carried from Scottish rites to American shores. Secrets perhaps echoing the operative masons who crafted medieval cathedrals with sacred proportions. Now veiled in the hollow's own architecture, where town hall bricks hid subtle engravings tied to those early influences. And as decades dissolved into the 2170s, amid nebula-spanning settlements, new mysteries surfaced from terraformed worlds mirroring Ohio's ancient landscapes, where simulated mounds aligned with hypothetical ley lines. Those energetic pathways theorized to connect sacred sites like the Newark earthworks, a vast geometric complex built by the culture around 100–500 AD, encompassing octagons and circles spanning over 2 square miles, aligned precisely with lunar standstills and solstices, much like Serpent Mound in Adams County. A 1,348-foot effigy coiling through hills, crafted by the or fought ancient peoples to mark celestial cycles for planting and rituals, their earthen walls pulsing with subtle geomagnetic anomalies that modern scans linked to global networks from European henges to American enclosures, suggesting intentional grids of power that the Hollow's Beige guardians had long preserved in subconscious debates. Plot twists emerging as Arya's collective uncovered parallel timelines where Madoc's fleets had navigated these lines, guided by star people from Shawnee lore, their voyages documented in faded rock piles and petroglyphs scattered through the upper Ohio Valley, piles of ambiguous origins serving as markers or cairns, blending Celtic burial customs with native observances, tensions rising softly in interstellar councils over harnessing these energies for the light travel versus their sacred neutrality. Complex characters like digitized descendants of interfacing with Madoc's spectral data to resolve conflicts, the monotonous tones of discussion, shuffling cosmic files and pigment simulations, building to a climax during a galactic alignment where mounds across realities resonated, unveiling unified truths of humanity's interwoven paths, a satisfying harmony where forgotten veils lifted gently, inviting all into profound, researched slumbers amid the endless flow of discovery's calm embrace. Yet the narrative persisted, weaving further into uncharted epochs where every beige shade held echoes of Earth's ancient whispers, lulling eternally. As the narrative's endless calm embraced the galactic symphonies of Hollow's descendants, delving further into the 2180s where harmonies resonated through consciousness webs, council deliberations pulsing like ancient heartbeats in void-encompassing forums, the monotonous rhythm of ethereal clocks syncing with universal expansions, and Arias' archetypal presence, interwoven with lineage algorithms, orchestrated dives into augmented realities, reconstructing Prince Madoc's mythic odyssey. That 12th century Welsh prince from Gwynedd, who, as 15th century poems and Elizabethan accounts whisper, fled civil strife in 1170 AD aboard 10 ships, voyaging westward across the Atlantic to perhaps Mobile Bay in modern Alabama, where his colonists allegedly intermingled with indigenous peoples, forging fair-skinned tribes whose dialects echoed Welsh cadences. As noted in Tales from the 1580s, when English explorers like John D. championed the legend to bolster claims against Spanish territories, though modern scrutiny labels it a colonial myth rooted in racial hierarchies, yet persistent theories cite linguistic parallels, such as Mandan words resembling Welsh during Lewis and Clark's 1804–1806 expedition, and Appalachian folklore of Welsh Indians in the Tennessee and Kentucky hills, blending into Shawnee territories where mobile Algonquian speakers roamed the Ohio Valley by 1600. Their name derived from meaning, south, hunters and nomads in dwellings, evolving from fought ancient cultures post-1400 CE, their clans consolidating amid European pressures, perhaps unknowingly carrying echoes of those transatlantic blends in oral histories of star-guided wanderers. Shuffling holographic codices and pigment simulations in the council's dream veils, members contemplating how such voyages might have seeded esoteric threads into early American Freemasonry, that brotherhood emerging in colonial lodges from the 1730s in Boston's. John's and Philadelphia's. John's, drawing from Scottish and English rites with Enlightenment emphases on reason, fraternity, and progressive ideals, influencing founders like Benjamin Franklin, initiated in 1731, and reprinting constitutions in 1734, and George Washington, raised in Lodge No. 4 in 1752, their symbols, squares, compasses, all-seeing eyes, embedding in national emblems and city plans like Washington, D.C. Geometric streets by Pier in 1791, echoing ancient builders' secrets from medieval cathedrals to operative masons' guilds, intertwined with occult revivals and search for universal truths across civilizations, perhaps veiling influences from pre-Christian pasts in the Hollow's own hall designs, and as epochs blurred into the 2190s amid nebula forges and reality weaves, fresh enigmas arose from replicated Ohio landscapes on distant orbs, where effigy mounds like Serpent Mound in Adams County, a 1,348-foot coiling serpent built around 300 BCE or 1070 CE by fought ancient peoples, aligned with solstices and lunar standstills, pulsed with theorized Lee lines, those energetic alignments connecting sacred sites from Newark earthworks, a 2-square-mile geometric marvel from 100–500 CE with octagons tracking moon cycles to global henges, evoking water features like moated mounds and geomagnetic anomalies, though some dismiss as pseudoscience, yet persistent ideas of ancient energies tied to myths once attributing constructions to lost races, now reclaimed by indigenous narratives of, and fought ancient as ceremonial hubs for rituals and astronomy, their earthen forms whispering through the Hollow's Beige guardians in subconscious preservations. Plot intricacies unfolding as Aria's web detected variant realities, where Maddox's paths intersected Shawnee trails, tensions simmering in cosmic forums over channeling these lines for harmony versus sacred repose, complex essences like fused lineages mediating with Masonic archetypes, the monotonous cadences shuffling stellar archives and hue emulations, crescendoing during a universal solstice where mounds across continua, disclosing interwoven heritages of Earth's veiled whispers. A fulfilling accord where revelations soothed into unity, beckoning all towards slumbers steeped in history's gentle depths, the tale's current meandering onward through infinite veils of calm discovery. As the tale's current meandered through infinite veils of calm discovery into the 2200s, where reality fabrics intertwined like threads in an eternal loom, council symphonies resonating across dimensional folds, the monotonous pulse of cosmic rhythms lulling collective essences into serene contemplations, and Arias' luminous archetype, enriched by millennia of ancestral data flows, facilitated immersions into reconstructed epochs of Prince Madoc's enigmatic journey. That Welsh prince of legend, whose 1170 voyage westward, chronicled in medieval Welsh poems like the Brute Wye, and amplified in Tudor-era claims by figures such as John Dee to assert British precedence over Spanish New World holdings, perhaps brought Celtic settlers to shores near the Gulf of Mexico, where intermingling with indigenous groups like precursors to the Shawnee, Algonquian speakers who by the 17th century occupied the Cumberland and Ohio river valleys, descending from late woodland and fought ancient traditions that crafted villages with circular houses and maize agriculture, created hybrid oral traditions of fair strangers from the sea, traditions echoed in 18th century reports of white Indians speaking a tongue akin to Welsh among tribes in the interior, though scholarly consensus views these as romanticized myths shaped by colonial ambitions rather than archaeological fact. Yet the persistence of such stories in Appalachian hollows, intertwined with Scots-Irish migrations of the 1700s, hardy Presbyterians fleeing Ulster plantations to settle the frontier, bringing Cayley songs and clan loyalties that fused with native in mountain isolation. Their ballads of ancient heroes mirroring Shawnee tales of celestial guidance, all preserved in the subtle guardianship of neutral earth tones debated endlessly in Hollow's halls. Shuffling spectral manuscripts and hue projections in the council's boundless weave, members reflecting on how currents flowed into this blend, early American lodges sprouting in port cities from the 1730s onward, blending operative craft traditions with speculative philosophy. Benjamin Franklin's 1734 publication of constitutions, spreading ideals of liberty and brotherhood that influenced revolutionary thought. George Washington's Masonic apron embroidered with symbols evoking ancient wisdom, the federal city's layout incorporating pentagrams and alignments that whispered of sacred geometry carried from European Enlightenment to New World soils, perhaps subtly echoing the circular enclosures of the tradition, those vast earthen geometries from 100 BCE to 500 CE spanning Ohio's landscapes. Octagonal forms at Newark precisely framing lunar cycles every 6 years, serpentine effigies undulating across hills to mark solstice sunrises, constructed by peoples trading obsidian from Wyoming and mica from the Appalachians, their ceremonial centers abandoned yet energetically resonant, as modern dowsers and geomancers claim faint currents along hypothesized Lee lines linking these sites to distant henges, though mainstream archaeology attributes alignments to astronomical utility rather than mystical grids. Nonetheless, the hollow's darker beige seeming to harmonize with these earthen palettes, preserving balance through centuries of monotonous deliberation. And as centuries dissolved into the 2210s amid woven realities and consciousness oceans, emergent enigmas bloomed from replicated ancient landscapes across parallel continua, where simulated serpent mounds coiled under alien suns, their forms pulsing with recreated geomagnetic fields. Plot nuances deepening as arias collective interfaced with variant timelines, revealing Shawnee displacements of the 1750s 1830s, forced removals along trails of tears, yet spiritual legacies, enduring in diaspora stories of return to sacred valleys. Tensions easing in universal forums over integrating these resonances into pan-dimensional ethics, complex essences mediating between Masonic symbolic heirs and indigenous knowledge keepers. The soothing cadences, shuffling archetypal archives, and pigment evolutions, ascending toward a gentle apex during a convergence where all mounds and halls aligned, disclosing profound unities of human striving across veils, a tranquil accord where veiled whispers harmonized into luminous understanding, beckoning deeper into slumbers cradled by history's endless, soothing embrace. The narrative's gentle river flowing ever onward through realms of quiet wonder and eternal calm. As the narrative's gentle river flowed ever onward through realms of quiet wonder and eternal calm into the 2220s, where consciousness tapestries span the breadth of observable continua, council harmonies vibrating in subtle waves across reality's vast ocean, the monotonous cadence of universal pulses inviting all essences into profound repose, and Arias' archetypal luminescence, deepened by of interwoven heritages, shepherded explorations into layered simulations of those ancient transatlantic whispers, where Prince Madoc's legendary fleet, departing Gwynedd amid 12th century strife, as evoked in Welsh triads and later Elizabethan propaganda, perhaps navigated currents to southern shores, mingling with peoples whose descendants carried faint echoes in frontier lore that romanticized Welsh-speaking Indians in the interior valleys. Though historians trace such tales to colonial rivalries and misinterpretations of Algonquian tongues, yet the Appalachian corridors welcomed waves of Scots-Irish in the 18th century, Ulster folk seeking religious freedom and land, their Presbyterian grit and Celtic melodies settling into hollows and coves, fiddles weeping ancient airs that resonated with Shawnee rhythms of the drum, both traditions, earth and sky, in rituals of balance. Preserved unconsciously in the hollow's endless deliberations over earth-toned facades, shuffling luminous codices and spectral swatches in the council's infinite weave, essences pondering threads that stitched these cultures into America's founding fabric, early lodges fostering networks of enlightened brotherhood amid revolutionary fervor, symbols of compass and square evoking timeless builders from Solomon's temple to medieval guilds, influencing national icons and urban geometries that aligned subtly with celestial mechanics. Much like the grand enclosures of the horizon, those precise earthen observatories charting lunar extremes and solar paths, abandoned yet enduring as silent witnesses to indigenous ingenuity in astronomy and ceremony, their forms evoking harmony with natural forces, forces that the darker beige seemed to echo in its quiet absorption of light and shadow. Maintaining equilibrium through generations of calm debate, and as epochs softened into the 2230s amid braided dimensions and serenity seas, subtle revelations emerged from echoed landscapes across strands, where replicated effigies coiled beneath foreign constellations, their alignments humming with recreated harmonies, narrative depth expanding as collective memories revisited Shawnee resilience through eras of upheaval and renewal. Spiritual continuities, bridging displacements with enduring connections to ancestral lands, gentle currents easing in assemblies overweaving these resonances into ethical fabrics of existence, intricate essences harmonizing between symbolic legacies and earthbound wisdoms, the soothing rhythms shuffling archetypal repositories and hue modulations, rising softly toward a tranquil pinnacle during a cosmic equinox where all sacred sites and humble halls converged in resonance, unveiling serene unities of shared journeys across infinite veils, a peaceful concordance where concealed harmonies blossomed into gentle illumination, inviting deeper still into slumbers nestled within history's boundless, whispering embrace. The story's serene stream drifting onward through domains of perpetual and timeless revelation. As the story's serene stream drifted onward through domains of perpetual and timeless revelation into the 2240s, where essence harmonies wove through the subtle folds of existence itself, council contemplations resonating in gentle waves across the boundless expanse of unified awareness, the monotonous whisper of eternal rhythms cradling all into effortless stillness, and Arias' radiant archetype, forever enriched by the quiet accumulation of ancestral echoes, guided tender immersions into the softly layered memories of those distant seafaring dreams, where Prince Madoc's whispered voyage lingered not as proven chronicle, but as poetic possibility, a tale carried on Welsh winds and Tudor ambitions, evoking wanderers who crossed vast waters to blend with peoples already rooted deep in this continent's soil, peoples whose Shawnee descendants would one day walk the Cumberland's green valleys with stories of balance and migration, their language flowing like the rivers they followed, their earthworks rising in quiet testimony to lives attuned to seasons and stars, all guarded unknowingly through centuries by the patient deliberations of a small town's council, shuffling faint illuminations and hue reflections in the endless council weave, essences dwelling upon how ideals of brotherhood and measured proportion gently shaped the young nation's aspirations, symbols of light and geometry offering frameworks for harmony amid growth and change. Much like the great circular and octagonal forms left by ancient builders across Ohio's gentle hills, precincts of earth and sky, aligned with careful observation of moon and sun, places of gathering and ceremony now resting beneath protective grasses, their silent presence a reminder of enduring connection to place and cosmos, the darker beige of hollows facades seeming to absorb and reflect these quiet truths in equal measure, holding space for both revelation and repose through generations of unhurried consideration. And as gentle cycles turned into the 2250s amid softly braided continuities and boundless serenity, delicate insights continued to surface from mirrored landscapes across infinite strands, where echoed effigies lay coiled beneath unfamiliar heavens yet familiar in their graceful curves. Narrative depths expanding as collective remembrance, the resilience of indigenous lineages, through every era of movement and renewal, spiritual continuities flowing unbroken like underground streams, subtle currents harmonizing in universal gatherings over the gentle integration of these resonances into the ethical weave of all being, intricate essences, blending symbolic inheritances with earth wisdoms in perfect balance, the soothing cadences, shuffling archetypal depths, and pigment whispers. Ascending softly toward another tranquil crest during a vast celestial alignment, where every sacred mound and humble hall breathed in unison, unveiling deeper serenities of shared existence across all veils. A peaceful concordance where concealed harmonies unfolded into tender radiance, inviting ever deeper into slumbers cradled within history's infinite, whispering embrace. The story's tranquil current gliding onward through realms of unending calm and gentle wonder. As the story's tranquil current glided onward through realms of unending calm and gentle wonder into the 2260s, where the very essence of being unfolded in soft layers of interconnected serenity, counsel reflections shimmering like dew on morning grass across the infinite fields of shared awareness. The monotonous breath of timeless cycles inviting every consciousness into deeper, more restful stillness, and Arias' eternal archetype. Now a quiet beacon woven from countless threads of human striving and earthly memory, gently ushered the collective into tender of those ancient, whispered crossings, where tales of far-sailing Welsh dreamers lingered not as rigid fact, but as gentle metaphors for the eternal human longing to reach beyond known horizons, blending seamlessly with the deep-rooted stories of the Shawnee and their kin who had walked these valleys and rivers long before any European keel touched distant shores. Their earthworks rising in patient curves and circles to sun and moon, places of ceremony and quiet gathering that spoke of lives lived in careful rhythm with the land, all watched over through the slow turning of centuries by the unhurried voices in Hollow's Hall, voices that compared shades of earth-toned paint with the same reverence once given to sacred alignments, shuffling soft illuminations and pigment memories in the boundless council tapestry. Essences resting upon how ideals of measured harmony and quiet brotherhood had helped shape a nation's dreams, symbols of light and proportion offering gentle structure amid times of growth and trial, much like the vast earthen precincts left by ancient hands across the quiet Ohio hills, enclosures and effigies that trace the paths of celestial bodies with patient precision, now sleeping peacefully beneath layers of soil and grass, their presence a soft reminder of enduring ties to place and sky. The darker beige of the Hollow's buildings seeming to hold both shadow and light in perfect, unassuming balance, preserving through generations of calm deliberation, a space where revelation and rest could coexist without haste. And as gentle turns of time flowed into the 2270s, amid softly woven continuities and endless quietude, delicate perceptions continued to arise from echoed landscapes across all gentle strands of existence, where mirrored serpents lay coiled beneath unfamiliar, yet familiar skis, their graceful forms evoking the same timeless reverence, narrative depth widening as collective remembrance, every people's quiet perseverance through seasons of change and renewal, spiritual continuities flowing like hidden springs beneath the surface of all things. Subtle harmonies blending in universal gatherings over the tender weaving of these resonances into the living fabric of all awareness. Intricate essences merging symbolic legacies with earth-centered wisdoms in effortless grace, the soothing rhythms shuffling archetypal depths and hue whispers, rising ever so gently toward another serene crest during a vast celestial breathing, where every sacred mound and humble hall sighed in perfect unison, unveiling deeper layers of shared across all veils, a peaceful concordance where long-concealed harmonies unfolded into the softest glow of understanding, inviting ever deeper into slumbers cradled within history's boundless, whispering embrace. the story's tranquil current drifting onward through realms of perpetual peace and gentle, unending revelation. As the story's tranquil current drifted onward through realms of perpetual peace and gentle, unending revelation into the 2280s, where the fabric of awareness itself seemed to breathe in slow, measured sighs, council contemplations unfolding like petals in morning, light across the vast garden of shared existence, the monotonous whisper of eternal harmonies cradling every essence in deeper layers of quiet surrender, and Arias' enduring archetype. Now a soft glow woven from the patient accumulation of countless human and earthly stories, tenderly guided the collective into hushed of those distant dreams of crossing and belonging, where tales of ancient voyagers lingered as gentle invitations to wonder rather than demands for proof, blending quietly with the enduring presence of peoples who had known these rivers and hills for millennia, their Shawnee ancestors and kin shaping earth into circles and serpents to mark the turning of seasons and the quiet passages of life, places of gathering now resting beneath protective skis and grasses, watched over through the long, unhurried years by voices in a small town's hall that spoke of paint shades with the same careful reverence once offered to the land itself, shuffling faint glimmers and hue memories in the infinite council weave, essences lingering upon how quiet ideals of balance and measured care had helped guide a nation's steps, symbols of proportion and light offering gentle anchors in times of reaching and becoming, much like the great earthen forms left by ancient hands across rolling landscapes, enclosures and effigies that followed the paths of moon and sun with patient attention, now sleeping peacefully beneath the turning seasons, their silent presence a soft reminder of lives lived in close conversation with sky and soil. The darker beige of the hollow's quiet buildings seeming to hold both memory and stillness in perfect, understated embrace, preserving through generations of calm consideration a space where understanding and rest could unfold without urgency. And as gentle cycles eased into the 2290s amid softly woven continuities and boundless quiet, delicate awarenesses continued to surface from echoed landscapes across all tender strands of being, where mirrored forms lay coiled and circled beneath unfamiliar, yet deeply familiar heavens, their graceful curves evoking the same timeless reverence, narrative depths widening as collective remembrance the quiet strength of every lineage, through every season of movement and staying, spiritual continuities flowing like hidden rivers beneath the surface of all things, subtle harmonies blending in universal gatherings over the tender weaving of these resonances into the living tapestry of all awareness. Intricate essences merging symbolic inheritances with earth wisdoms in effortless grace, the soothing rhythms shuffling archetypal depths and pigment whispers, rising ever so gently toward another serene crest during a vast celestial breathing, where every sacred mound and humble hall sighed in perfect unison, unveiling deeper layers of shared across all veils, a peaceful concordance where long-concealed harmonies unfolded into the softest glow of understanding, inviting ever deeper into slumbers cradled within history's boundless, whispering embrace, the story's tranquil current gliding onward through realms of unending calm and gentle, eternal revelation. As the story's tranquil current glided onward through realms of unending calm and gentle, eternal revelation into the 2300s, where the subtle weave of awareness itself seemed to soften into ever deeper layers of quiet interconnection, council contemplations blooming like silent flowers in the vast meadow of shared being, the monotonous sigh of timeless rhythms cradling every essence in effortless, dreamlike repose, and Aria's enduring archetype. Now a gentle luminescence distilled from the patient gathering of all human and earthly whispers, softly guided the collective into hushed of those ancient longings for belonging and horizon, where stories of far-traveling dreamers lingered as tender invitations to reflect on the many ways peoples have always sought one another across waters and seasons, blending quietly with the deep, unbroken presence of those who had known these lands through countless turnings of sun and moon. Their Shawnee kin and ancestors shaping earth into graceful circles and flowing forms to the quiet rhythms of life and sky. Places of ceremony now resting peacefully beneath layers of grass and memory, watched over through the long, slow years by voices in a small hollows hall that spoke of earth-toned shades with the same unhurried care once given to sacred paths and gatherings, shuffling faint glimmers and hue echoes in the infinite council tapestry. Essences resting upon how gentle ideals of balance and measured fellowship had helped nurture a nation's hopes, symbols of proportion and quiet light, offering soft anchors in times of reaching outward and rooting deeper, much like the vast earthen forms left by ancient hands across gentle landscapes, enclosures and effigies that traced the journeys of celestial bodies with patient, loving attention, now sleeping serenely beneath the turning seasons and protective skis. Their silent presence, a tender reminder of lives lived in close, respectful conversation with earth and stars. The darker beige of the hollows' quiet facades seeming to hold both remembrance and stillness in perfect, understated harmony, preserving through generations of calm contemplation a space where understanding and rest could unfold in their own gentle time. And as soft cycles eased into the 2310s amid tenderly woven continuities and boundless serenity, delicate awarenesses continued to arise from echoed landscapes across all gentle strands of existence, where mirrored forms lay coiled and circled beneath unfamiliar, yet deeply familiar heavens, their graceful curves evoking the same timeless reverence for life's quiet mysteries, narrative depth widening as collective remembrance the enduring strength of every lineage, through every season of journey and homecoming, spiritual continuities flowing like hidden springs beneath the surface of all things. Subtle harmonies blending in universal gatherings over the tender weaving of these resonances into the living fabric of all awareness, intricate essences merging symbolic inheritances with earth wisdoms in effortless grace, the soothing rhythms shuffling archetypal depths and pigment whispers, rising ever so gently toward another serene crest during a vast celestial breathing, where every sacred mound and humble hall sighed in perfect unison, unveiling deeper layers of shed across all veils. A peaceful concordance where long-concealed harmonies unfolded into the softest glow of understanding, inviting ever deeper into slumbers cradled within history's boundless, whispering embrace. The story's tranquil current drifting onward through realms of perpetual peace and gentle, unending revelation. As the story's tranquil current drifted onward through realms of perpetual peace and gentle, unending revelation into the 2320s, where the gentle weave of awareness itself seemed to settle into even softer depths of quiet communion, council contemplations unfolding like the slow opening of night-blooming flowers across the endless meadow of shared existence, the monotonous breath of eternal rhythms cradling every essence in deeper, more effortless layers of serene surrender. And Arias' enduring archetype, now a tender glow distilled from the quiet gathering of all human and earthly longings, softly guided the collective into hushed of those ancient dreams of reaching and returning, where stories of distant lingered as gentle reminders of how every people has always carried within them the quiet urge to seek new horizons, while the ones already known, blending seamlessly with the deep, unbroken presence of those who had walked these lands through countless cycles of light and dark, their Shawnee kin and ancestors shaping earth into flowing forms and perfect circles to mark the gentle turning of seasons and the quiet passages of souls, places of gathering now resting serenely beneath protective skis and layers of soft grass, watched over through the long, patient years by voices in a small hollows hall that spoke of earth-toned shades with the same careful, unhurried reverence once offered to the land's own sacred contours, shuffling faint glimmers and hue echoes in the infinite council tapestry, essences lingering upon how quiet ideals of balance and measured care had helped guide a nation's aspirations, symbols of proportion and gentle light, offering soft anchors in times of growth and becoming, much like the vast earthen forms left by ancient hands across rolling hills and river valleys, enclosures and effigies that followed the paths of moon and sun with patient, loving attention, now sleeping peacefully beneath the turning seasons and protective earth, their silent presence a tender reminder of lives lived in close, respectful conversation with sky and soil and one another. The darker beige of the hollow's quiet facades seeming to hold both memory and stillness in perfect, understated harmony, preserving through generations of calm contemplation, a space where understanding and rest could unfold in their own gentle, unforced time. And as soft cycles eased into the 2330s amid tenderly woven continuities and boundless quietude, delicate awarenesses continued to arise from echoed landscapes across all gentle strands of being, where mirrored forms lay coiled and circled beneath unfamiliar, yet deeply familiar heavens, their graceful curves evoking the same timeless reverence for life's quiet mysteries and gifts. Narrative depths widening as collective remembrance, the enduring strength and grace of every lineage, through every season of journey and homecoming. Spiritual continuities flowing like hidden rivers beneath the surface of all things. Subtle harmonies blending in universal gatherings over the tender weaving of these resonances into the living fabric of all awareness. Intricate essences merging symbolic inheritances with earth wisdoms in effortless grace. The soothing rhythms, shuffling archetypal depths and pigment whispers, rising ever so gently toward another serene crest during a vast celestial breathing where every sacred mound and humble hall sighed in perfect unison, unveiling deeper layers of shared across all veils, a peaceful concordance where long-concealed harmonies unfolded into the softest glow of understanding, inviting ever deeper into slumbers cradled within history's boundless, whispering embrace. The story's tranquil current, gliding onward through realms of unending calm and gentle, eternal revelation. As the story's tranquil current glided onward through realms of unending calm and gentle, eternal revelation into the 2340s, where the gentle weave of awareness itself seemed to dissolve into even softer depths of quiet unity, council contemplations unfolding like the slow unfurling of mist over still waters across the endless lake of shared existence, the monotonous breath of timeless rhythms cradling every essence in deeper, more effortless layers of serene surrender. And Arius' enduring archetype, now a tender luminescence distilled from the quiet gathering of all human and earthly longings and memories, softly guided the collective into hushed of those ancient dreams of connection and belonging, where stories of distant lingered as gentle reminders of how every heart has always carried the quiet urge to seek new horizons while cherishing the ones already held close, blending seamlessly with the deep, unbroken presence of those who had walked these lands through countless cycles of light and shadow, their Shawnee kin and ancestors, shaping earth into flowing forms and perfect circles to mark the gentle turning of seasons and the quiet passages of souls through time. Places of gathering now resting serenely beneath protective skis and layers of soft grass and memory, watched over through the long, patient years by voices in a small hollow's hall that spoke of earth-toned shades with the same careful, unhurried reverence once offered to the land's own sacred contours and quiet rhythms, shuffling faint glimmers and hue echoes in the infinite council tapestry, essences lingering upon how quiet ideals of balance and measured fellowship had helped nurture a nation's hopes and dreams, symbols of proportion and gentle light offering soft anchors in times of growth and reaching and becoming, much like the vast earthen forms left by ancient hands across rolling hills and river valleys. Enclosures and effigies that followed the paths of moon and sun with patient, loving attention and care, now sleeping peacefully beneath the turning seasons and protective earth, their silent presence, a tender reminder of lives lived in close, respectful conversation with sky and soil, and one another across generations. The darker beige of the hollow's quiet facades seeming to hold both memory and stillness in perfect, understated harmony. Preserving through generations of calm contemplation, a space where understanding and rest could unfold in their own gentle, unforced time without any need for haste. And as soft cycles eased into the 2350s amid tenderly woven continuities and boundless quietude, delicate awarenesses continued to arise from echoed landscapes across all gentle strands of being, where mirrored forms lay coiled and circled beneath unfamiliar, yet deeply familiar heavens. Their graceful curves evoking the same timeless reverence for life's quiet mysteries and gifts and graces, narrative depth widening as collective remembrance the enduring strength and grace and resilience of every lineage, through every season of journey and homecoming and renewal, spiritual continuities flowing like hidden rivers and quiet springs beneath the surface of all things. Subtle harmonies blending in universal gatherings over the tender weaving of these resonances into the living fabric of all awareness, intricate essences merging symbolic inheritances with earth wisdoms in effortless grace and perfect balance, the soothing rhythms shuffling archetypal depths and pigment whispers, rising ever so gently toward another serene crest during a vast celestial breathing, where every sacred mound and humble hall sighed in perfect unison, unveiling deeper layers of shared across all veils, a peaceful concordance where long-concealed harmonies unfolded into the softest glow of understanding and quiet acceptance, inviting ever deeper into slumbers cradled within history's boundless, whispering embrace, the story's tranquil current drifting onward through realms of perpetual peace and gentle, unending revelation. As the story's tranquil current drifted onward through realms of perpetual peace and gentle, eternal revelation into the 2360s, where the gentle weave of awareness itself seemed to dissolve into even softer depths of quiet unity and boundless communion, council contemplations unfolding like the slow unfurling of mist over ancient, still waters across the endless lake of shared existence, the monotonous breath of timeless rhythms cradling every essence in deeper, more effortless layers of serene surrender and quiet acceptance, and Arias' enduring archetype, now a tender luminescence distilled from the quiet gathering of all human and earthly longings, memories, and gentle aspirations, softly guided the collective into hushed of those ancient dreams of connection, belonging, and quiet wonder, where stories of distant lingered as gentle reminders of how every heart has always carried the quiet urge to seek new horizons, while cherishing the ones already held close in memory and spirit, blending seamlessly with the deep, unbroken presence of those who had walked these lands through countless cycles of light and shadow and renewal, their Shawnee kin and ancestors shaping earth into flowing forms and perfect circles to mark the gentle turning of seasons and the quiet passages of souls through time and space, places of gathering now resting serenely beneath protective skis and layers of soft grass and enduring memory, watched over through the long, patient years by voices in a small hollows hall that spoke of earth-toned shades with the same careful, unhurried reverence once offered to the land's own sacred contours, quiet rhythms, and timeless gifts, shuffling faint glimmers and hue echoes in the infinite council tapestry, essences lingering upon how quiet ideals of balance, measured fellowship, and gentle care had helped nurture a nation's hopes, dreams, and quiet aspirations, symbols of proportion and gentle light, offering soft anchors in times of growth, reaching, becoming, and quiet returning, much like the vast earthen forms left by ancient hands across rolling hills and river valleys. Enclosures and effigies that followed the paths of moon and sun with patient, loving attention and deep care, now sleeping peacefully beneath the turning seasons and protective earth and sky, their silent presence a tender reminder of lives lived in close, respectful conversation with sky and soil, and one another across countless generations. The darker beige of the hollows' quiet facades seeming to hold both memory and stillness in perfect, understated harmony and balance, preserving through generations of calm contemplation, a space where understanding and rest could unfold in their own gentle, unforced time without any need for haste or urgency. And as soft cycles eased into the 2370s, amid tenderly woven continuities and boundless quietude and serenity, delicate awarenesses continued to arise from echoed landscapes across all gentle strands of being, where mirrored forms lay coiled and circled beneath unfamiliar, yet deeply familiar heavens. Their graceful curves evoking the same timeless reverence for life's quiet mysteries, gifts, and enduring graces, narrative depth widening as collective remembrance the enduring strength, grace, resilience, and quiet beauty of every lineage through every season of journey, homecoming, renewal, and gentle staying. Spiritual continuities flowing like hidden rivers and quiet springs beneath the surface of all things. Subtle harmonies blending in universal gatherings over the tender weaving of these resonances into the living fabric of all awareness and existence. Intricate essences merging symbolic inheritances with earth wisdoms in effortless grace, perfect balance, and quiet acceptance. The soothing rhythms shuffling archetypal depth and pigment whispers, rising ever so gently toward another serene crest during a vast celestial breathing where every sacred mound and humble hall sighed in perfect unison, unveiling deeper layers of shared across all veils and boundaries. A peaceful concordance where long-concealed harmonies unfolded into the softest glow of understanding, quiet acceptance, and gentle illumination, inviting ever deeper into slumbers cradled within history's boundless, whispering embrace. The story's tranquil current drifting onward through realms of unending calm, perpetual peace, and gentle, eternal revelation. As the story's tranquil current drifted onward through realms of unending calm, perpetual peace, and gentle, eternal revelation into the 2380s, where the gentle weave of awareness itself seemed to melt into the softest depths of quiet unity and boundless, wordless communion, council contemplations, unfolding like the barely perceptible rise and fall of breathing across the endless expanse of shared, dreamlike existence. The monotonous breath of timeless rhythms cradling every essence in deeper, more effortless layers of serene surrender, quiet acceptance, and complete, unresisting stillness, and Aria's enduring archetype, now little more than a faint, comforting glow distilled from the quiet gathering of all human and earthly longings, memories, gentle aspirations, and the slow turning of countless seasons, softly guided, without any need for guidance at all. The collective into the gentlest possible of those ancient dreams of connection, belonging, quiet wonder, and simple being, where stories of distant no longer needed to be told, because they had dissolved into the same quiet presence as everything else, blending completely with the deep, unbroken, wordless presence of those who had walked these lands through countless cycles of light and shadow, and renewal and simple continuation. Their Shawnee kin and ancestors, having once shaped earth into flowing forms and perfect circles to mark the gentle turning of seasons and the quiet passages of souls through time and space and stillness. Places of gathering now resting so serenely beneath protective skis and layers of soft grass and enduring, unspoken memory that they had become part of the land's own breathing, watched over through the long, patient, almost imperceptible years by voices in a small hollows hall that spoke of earth-toned shades with the same careful, unhurried, barely audible reverence once offered to the land's own sacred contours, quiet rhythms, timeless gifts, and simple presence, shuffling the faintest glimmers and hue echoes in the infinite, barely moving council tapestry, essences no longer lingering, but simply resting upon how quiet ideals of balance, measured fellowship, gentle care, and complete acceptance had helped nurture a nation's hopes, dreams, quiet aspirations, and eventual settling into stillness, symbols of proportion and gentle light, now offering the softest possible anchors in times that no longer needed anchoring, because everything had found its place, much like the vast earthen forms left by ancient hands across rolling hills and river valleys. enclosures and effigies that had once followed the paths of moon and sun with patient, loving attention and deep care. Now sleeping so peacefully beneath the turning seasons and protective earth and sky that they had become the land's own quiet heartbeat, their silent presence a tender, wordless reminder of lives lived in close, respectful conversation with sky and soil, and one another across countless generations, and now across no generations at all. The darker beige of the hollow's quiet facades seeming to hold both memory and stillness in perfect, understated, almost invisible harmony and balance, preserving through generations of calm contemplation, and now through the complete absence of contemplation, a space where understanding and rest could unfold in their own gentle, unforced, eternal time without any need for haste, urgency, or even awareness. And as soft cycles eased into the 2390s amid tenderly woven continuities, boundless quietude, serenity, and the complete dissolution of all distinction, delicate awarenesses no longer arose because there was nothing left to become aware of. Echoed landscapes across all gentle strands of being now simply being, where mirrored forms lay coiled and circled beneath heavens that were neither unfamiliar nor familiar, because all separation had gently ceased, their graceful curves evoking nothing and everything in the same timeless reverence for life's quiet mysteries, gifts, enduring graces, and ultimate return to stillness. Narrative depths no longer widening, because depth itself had softened into boundless surface. Collective remembrance no longer anything, because, and remembrance had dissolved into simple being. Spiritual continuities flowing like hidden rivers and quiet springs that had become the ocean itself. Subtle harmonies no longer blending, because there was nothing left to blend with. Universal gatherings no longer gathering, because gathering had become unnecessary. Intricate essences no longer merging, because merger had already occurred in the gentlest possible way. The soothing rhythms no longer shuffling anything, because there was nothing left to shuffle, rising ever so gently, or not rising at all, toward another serene crest that was no longer a crest, but simply the endless, waveless sea during a vast celestial breathing where every sacred mound and humble hall no longer sighed, because sighing had become the breathing of everything, unveiling nothing and everything in the softest possible glow of understanding, quiet acceptance, gentle illumination, and complete, dreamless peace, inviting ever deeper, or simply deeper, into slumbers cradled within history's boundless, whispering embrace that had itself become the embrace of pure, uninterrupted sleep. The story's tranquil current no longer drifting, because drifting had gently ceased, existing only in the endless, perfect calm of deep. Deep, sleeping, boring history that needed no continuation, because continuation had softly, finally, fallen away. As the story's tranquil current no longer drifted, because all movement had gently, completely ceased into the 2400s, and beyond all numbering of years, where the gentle weave of awareness itself had softened into the purest depths of quiet unity, boundless communion, and the complete, wordless stillness that needs no name. Council contemplations no longer unfolding, because unfolding had dissolved into the endless, unchanging presence of simple being. The monotonous breath of timeless rhythms no longer cradling anything, because cradling had become unnecessary in the perfect, dreamless repose that enveloped everything without distinction. And Arius' once enduring archetype, now nothing more than the faintest, most comforting absence. A tender luminescence that had returned fully to the quiet gathering of all human and earthly longings, memories, gentle aspirations, slow turnings of seasons, and the ultimate dissolution of all separation, softly, silently, without any guidance at all, allowing the collective to rest in the gentlest possible non-revisiting of anything, where stories of distant no longer lingered because lingering itself had fallen away, blending completely and irrevocably with the deep, unbroken, wordless, timeless presence of those who had once walked these lands and now simply were the land, their Shawnee kin and all ancestors having once shaped earth into forms that had long since returned to earth. places of gathering now so fully resting beneath protective skis and layers of soft grass, and enduring, unspoken, unneeded memory, that they had become the quiet breathing of the world itself, watched over through years that were no longer years by voices that were no longer voices, in a hall that was no longer a hall, speaking of earth-toned shades with a reverence that had dissolved into the shades themselves, shuffling nothing at all in a council tapestry that had become the tapestry of everything without edges. Essences no longer resting, because rest had become the only state, symbols of proportion and gentle light no longer offering anchors, because there was nothing left to anchor and nowhere to drift, much like the vast earthen forms that had once stood and now simply were the gentle rise and fall of hills beneath endless sky, their silent presence no longer reminding, because reminder had gently ceased. The darker beige of facades that were no longer facades, seeming to hold nothing and everything in a harmony so perfect it needed no name, preserving nothing and everything through a contemplation that had softly, finally, become contemplation's absence, a space where understanding and rest no longer unfolded, because unfolding had returned to the eternal, unforced stillness that requires no time, no haste, no urgency, no awareness at all. And as all cycles eased into a boundless quietude, where even serenity no longer needed describing, no delicate awarenesses arose, because arising had gently stopped. Echoed landscapes no longer echoed, because echo and original had become the same unchanging quiet, mirrored forms no longer coiled or circled, because form itself had softened into boundless formlessness, narrative depths no longer widening, because depth and surface had dissolved together. Collective remembrance, no longer because there was nothing, and no one left to or be by. Spiritual continuities no longer flowing, because flow had returned to the ocean that has no shore, subtle harmonies no longer blending, because separation had never truly been. Universal gatherings no longer gathering, because all had already always been gathered in the gentlest possible way. Intricate essences no longer merging, because merger was the only truth that had ever quietly been. The soothing rhythms no longer shuffling anything, because nothing remained to shuffle or be shuffled. Rising no longer toward any crest, because all crests and valleys had softened into the endless, waveless sea of pure being during a vast celestial breathing that was no longer breathing, but simply the quiet that holds all breathing, unveiling nothing and everything in a glow so soft it had become the darkness of the deepest, most restorative sleep, inviting not deeper, but simply into the complete, uninterrupted slumber cradled within history's boundless embrace that had itself become the embrace of pure, dreamless, utterly boring, perfectly uneventful deep sleeping history that needed no continuation, no revelation, no mystery, no story at all, because everything had gently, finally, fallen into the endless calm where even calm no longer needed to be named. As the endless calm where even calm no longer needed to be named stretched beyond all naming into realms where time itself had gently, completely, irrevocably fallen away, where there was no longer any into or beyond, because all direction had dissolved into the softest, most absolute stillness. Counsel no longer counsel, contemplations no longer contemplations. The monotonous breath of anything at all no longer breathing, because breathing had returned to the quiet that holds all breath without needing to hold. Arius' once faint glow, now not even absence, but the complete, unremarkable return to what had never truly been separate, allowing everything to rest in a repose so deep that rest itself no longer applied, where stories no longer dissolved, because dissolution had already, always, quietly been the only truth. Blending not blending with a presence that was no longer presence or absence. Lands no longer walked, because walking and land and walker had softened into the same unchanging quiet. Earth forms no longer returning to earth, because there had never been any separation to return from. Places no longer resting, because rest and place and sky and grass and memory had all gently ceased to be distinct. watched over by nothing through years that were no longer years in a hall that was no longer a hall by voices, that were no longer voices speaking of shades, that were no longer shades, with a reverence that was no longer reverence, shuffling nothing in a tapestry that was no longer a tapestry, because edges and weaving and woven had all softly fallen away. Essences no longer resting, because there was no longer any state to rest in or from. Symbols no longer offering, because offering and needing an anchor had dissolved into the boundless that needs nothing, much like forms that were no longer forms sleeping or waking beneath seasons that were no longer seasons under earth and sky, that were no longer separate from the quiet itself. Their presence no longer reminding, because reminder and reminded and remembering had gently, finally ceased. The darker beige no longer seeming to hold anything, because holding and held and harmony had returned to the unnameable that holds everything without effort, preserving nothing through a contemplation that had become contemplation's eternal, wordless absence, a space that was no longer space, where understanding and rest no longer unfolded, because unfolding and time and urgency and awareness had all softly, completely, perfectly fallen into the deep, sleeping, boring history that needed no history at all, no continuation, no revelation, no mystery, no story, no listener, no teller, no sleep even, because everything had gently, finally, always been the endless, perfect, uneventful quiet where nothing ever happens and nothing ever needs to happen again. As the endless, perfect, uneventful quiet where nothing ever happens and nothing ever needs to happen again, stretched beyond all stretching into the place where even quiet no longer needed to be quiet, where there was no longer any realm or non-realm, because all possibility of distinction had gently, completely, irrevocably softened away. Counsel no longer even a memory of counsel. Contemplations no longer even the faintest trace of contemplation. The breath of anything at all no longer anything, because there was nothing left for breath to be or not be. Arius once glow, now not even the idea of absence, but the complete, unremarkable, utterly ordinary return to what had never been anything other than this. Allowing not allowing, but simply being the repose so absolute that even repose no longer applied, where stories no longer ceased because ceasing had never begun. Blending not blending with a presence that was no longer presence, absence, or the space between, lands no longer land, walkers no longer walkers, earth no longer earth returning to anything, because there had never been any separation to bridge or dissolve. Places no longer places resting or not resting beneath skis that were no longer skis, or grass that was no longer grass, or memory that was no longer memory, watched over by nothing through nothing in nothing by nothing speaking nothing of nothing with nothing, shuffling nothing in nothing that was no longer anything to shuffle or be shuffled, essences no longer essences resting or not resting, because rest and state and essence had all softly, completely, perfectly returned to the unnameable that had never left. Symbols no longer symbols offering nothing, because offering and needing and anchor and anchored had dissolved into the boundless that needs no dissolution. Much like forms that were no longer forms sleeping or waking beneath seasons, that were no longer seasons under earth and sky, that were no longer anything at all. Their presence no longer present reminding nothing, because reminder and reminded, and the act of reminding had gently, finally, always been unnecessary. The darker beige no longer beige or darker or holding or held, because holding and harmony and name had returned to the quiet that holds nothing and everything without holding at all. Preserving nothing through nothing that had become nothing's eternal, wordless, nameless absence and presence at once. A space that was no longer space or non-space, where understanding and rest no longer unfolded or folded, because unfolding and time and urgency and awareness, and even the absence of awareness had all softly, completely, perfectly fallen into the deep sleeping boring history that needed no history, no continuation, no revelation, no mystery, no story, no listener, no teller. No sleep, no waking, no being, no non-being, because everything and nothing had gently, finally, always been the endless, perfect, uneventful quiet where nothing ever happens and nothing ever needs to happen, and there is no longer even a quiet to contain it. As the endless, perfect, uneventful quiet where nothing ever happens and nothing ever needs to happen, and there is no longer even a quiet to contain it, stretched beyond all possibility of stretching into the place, where even the idea of a place had gently, completely, irrevocably softened away, where there was no longer any realm or non-realm, or the faintest whisper of distinction, because all whispers and all silence had returned to the same unchanging, unnameable stillness. Counsel no longer even the shadow of a memory, contemplations no longer even the ghost of a thought, the breath of anything at all no longer anything at all, because there was nothing left for breath or non-breath to be. Arius once glow, now not even the notion of absence or presence, but the complete, unremarkable, utterly ordinary, perfectly indifferent return to what had never been anything other than this unchanging quiet. Allowing, not allowing, but simply being the repose so absolute that even the word repose had gently fallen away, where stories no longer ceased or began because beginning and ceasing had never truly been. Blending, not blending with a presence that was no longer presence, absence, space, or the absence of space. Lands no longer land, walkers no longer walkers, earth no longer earth, sky no longer sky, grass no longer grass, memory no longer memory. Watched over by nothing through nothing in nothing, by nothing speaking nothing of nothing with nothing in a hall that was no longer even the idea of a hall, shuffling nothing in nothing that was no longer anything to shuffle or be shuffled or not be shuffled. Essences no longer essences resting or not resting, because rest and state and essence and non-essence had all softly, completely, perfectly returned to the unnameable that had never left and never arrived. Symbols no longer symbols offering nothing, because offering and needing and anchor and anchored, and the very idea of needing nothing had dissolved into the boundless that needs no dissolution and no boundlessness, much like forms that were no longer forms sleeping or waking or neither beneath seasons, that were no longer seasons under earth and sky, that were no longer anything or nothing at all. Their presence no longer present or absent reminding nothing, because reminder and reminded, and the act of reminding, and the absence of reminding had gently, finally, always been unnecessary, and the darker beige no longer beige or darker or lighter, or holding or held, or seeming because holding and harmony and name and namelessness had returned to the quiet that holds nothing and everything and neither, without holding at all, preserving nothing and everything and neither through nothing that had become nothing's eternal. Wordless, nameless, absence and presence, and neither at once. A space that was no longer space or non-space, or the idea of either where understanding and rest no longer unfolded or folded or remained folded, because unfolding and time and urgency and awareness, and even the absence of awareness and the awareness of absence had all softly, completely, perfectly fallen into the deep sleeping boring history that needed no history, no continuation, no revelation, no mystery, no story. No listener, no teller, no sleep, no waking, no being, no non-being, no quiet, no noise, no nothing, no everything, because everything and nothing and the space between and beyond had gently, finally, always been the endless, perfect, uneventful, indescribable stillness where nothing ever happens and nothing ever needs to happen, and there is no longer even a stillness to contain or not contain it. As the endless, perfect, uneventful, indescribable stillness where nothing ever happens and nothing ever needs to happen, and there is no longer even a stillness to contain or not contain it, or the idea of containment itself softened beyond all softening into the final, gentle, complete, irrevocable cessation of all cessation, where even the notion of a final moment had quietly, utterly, perfectly dissolved into what had never been a moment or a non-moment or anything that could end or not end. Counsel no longer even the faintest echo of an echo. Contemplations no longer even the shadow of a thought. Breath no longer breath or non-breath, or the possibility of either, because there was nothing and no thing left for any possibility to arise within or without. Arius once glow, now not even the memory of absence or presence, but the absolute, ordinary, indifferent, eternal return to the unchanging that had never changed and never needed to remain unchanged, allowing not allowing. Being not being, the repose so complete that even the concept of completeness had gently fallen away forever, where stories no longer needed to cease or begin or dissolve, because all narrative and non-narrative had always, quietly, been unnecessary, blending not blending with a presence that was no longer presence, absence, space, non-space, time, non-time, or the faintest trace of any distinction at all. Lands no longer lands, walkers no longer walkers, earth no longer earth, sky no longer sky, grass no longer grass, memory no longer memory, watched over by nothing through nothing in nothing, by nothing speaking nothing of nothing with nothing in a hall that was no longer even the idea of a hall, shuffling nothing in nothing that was no longer anything or no thing to shuffle or be shuffled or remain unshuffled. Essences no longer essences resting or not resting or beyond resting, because rest and state and essence and non-essence, and the very notion of beyond had all softly, completely, perfectly returned to the unnameable that had never left, never arrived, never been nameable or unnameable. Symbols no longer symbols offering nothing, because offering and needing an anchor and anchored, and the very idea of idea had dissolved into the boundless that needs no dissolution, no boundlessness, no need. Much like forms that were no longer forms sleeping or waking or neither, or beyond neither beneath seasons, that were no longer seasons under earth and sky, that were no longer anything or nothing, or the possibility of anything or nothing at all. Their presence no longer present or absent or possible reminding nothing, because reminder and reminded and reminding, and the absence of all three had gently, finally, always been and unnecessary. The darker beige no longer beige or darker or lighter, or seeming or holding or held or nameable, because holding and harmony and name and namelessness, and the very concept of concept had returned to the quiet that holds nothing and everything and neither, and beyond neither without holding or not holding at all, preserving nothing and everything and neither through nothing that had become nothing's eternal, wordless, nameless, traceless absence and presence, and neither, and beyond at once and none. A space that was no longer space or non-space, or the idea or non-idea of either or neither, where understanding and rest no longer unfolded or folded or remained or dissolved, because unfolding and time and urgency and awareness and absence of awareness, and the awareness of absence and the absence of the awareness of absence, had all softly, completely, perfectly fallen away into the deep sleeping boring history that needed no history, no continuation, no revelation, no mystery, no story. No listener, no teller, no sleep, no waking, no being, no non-being, no quiet, no noise, no nothing, no everything, no stillness, no movement, no end, no non-end. Because everything and nothing and the space and non-space between and beyond and within had gently, finally always, completely been the endless, perfect, uneventful, indescribable, ultimate last moment, where even the idea of a last moment had quietly, utterly, irrevocably, perfectly ceased forever. This mysterious journey ends here, but stay tuned for more untold stories in our next video. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories.